To celebrate 65 years of running, canoeing, swimming and cycling, I decided to cycle South Africa's back gravel roads from Cape Point all the way along the mountains to Beitbridge on the Limpopo River. My retirement from 40 years of legal practice gave me the time to experience the adventure during March and April of 2014. This video tells the story of my journey through daily iPhone pictures and posts. I hope it gives to you some idea of how magnificent it is to travel slowly through one's country, unsupported and under one's own steam on a simple bicycle. The reason why I decided to cycle from Cape Point to Beitbridge was really to try to replicate in South Africa something like the end-to-end ride in the UK or the Great Divide ride in the US. Why I did it from Cape Point to Beitbridge was that my research indicated that the prevailing wind was basically a southwester, and I wanted to have that wind behind me as I crossed particularly the Karoo, rather than to ride into the wind. My research led me to Kevin Davey, who had pioneered the South African ride, and he was very, very encouraging. Also, I met Jaco Stradum, who quite remarkably had done the ride both from Cape Point to Beitbridge and from Beitbridge back along the west to Cape Town before, very, very sadly, he died of cancer. My biggest challenges on the journey, I think, were basically discipline. It was so important to prepare very, very meticulously for the ride, and then on the ride itself to be very disciplined about eating carefully during the ride and eating during the magic hour after the ride to make sure that my body was properly replenished for the next day. Also to be very disciplined about my own cleanliness so that I didn't pick up any kind of infection. Also to keep my bike clean so that it limited the maintenance or any breakdown that I might have, and also alerted me to any fault that there might be with the bike. So I think the biggest lesson for me was the importance of preparation and the importance of being disciplined on the ride.
Okay, so we're at the start of the Cape Point to Beitbridge ride with Big John Brand.
3,400 k's to go on the most beautiful day. What a fantastic canvas to express one's passion.
What was the most special day for me, I think without doubt, was day one. Not only the excitement of leaving the lighthouse at Cape Point in the presence of my wife and my sister from the UK, and to set off with one of my sons, James, but we weren't even out of the Cape Nature Reserve when James got a message from his wife to say that she'd gone into labour, and he dashed off to be at the berth while I completed the ride of that day from Noordhoek to Mooly Point Lighthouse. And I had this magnificent experience very shortly after day one of going to the nursing home and being introduced to my new granddaughter Amelia, and that will certainly stick with me all my life. Down the main drag of Camps Bay after an awesome day's riding. Day 3 was another special day because it was Argus Day, and I really took a day off from the ride to ride Argus for the 28th time with my very good cycling friend Andy Duncan.
My mate Andy of 30 years of cycling. August start, day 3, wind howling, going to be an interesting
Right,
ride.
time to hear it. Everybody say, what now? One of them make 3, 2, 1.
Drive Wynberg Hill, coming up to Crow's Corner. And here is Crow's Corner. Smith's Winkel on a windy day. Magnificent chappies on race day. Top of Seikabosi, 28th time, still enjoying it.
In relation to carriers, my inventory included stainless steel water bottles, a 3-litre bladder with a mouthpiece which I carried in a rucksack on my back, a cockpit bag, a saddle bag, a seat bag, and a front holster to carry a bar bag, and then a net bag to carry sundry things, as well as the 20-litre rucksack.
This is the Swarmwood Pass, a place where I would really like to have my brother's legs. It's so beautiful, so quiet. Top of Swarmwood Pass, just over 600 meters of climbing, awesome scenery.
Day 8 must also rate as a very special day. It was the day I rode from Inverdoorn to Maatjiesfontein. Jenny, my wife, had accompanied me on the first few days, but I said farewell to her at Inverdoorn, and I knew that from then on I was really on my own.
Leaving my bicycle groupie behind, and from now on I'm all on my own. Cheers, Jenny! And now it's just me alone in the desert, with Karoopoort there in the background, and the long and dusty road that I've travelled so far, very corrugated and a bit of a headwind, but not too bad. Just the space and the incredible silence out here, it's just amazing. There in the distance is the Groot Rivier, and the trusted steed is doing me proud. I've just stopped for a tea break.
It wasn't long after that I started to pick up punctures in my back tire, and also to have warping of the back tire, which was a problem that plagued me virtually all the way through to Newcastle. But one of the most amazing things that happened on the route was when I got to Maatjiesfontein and was without another spare tire. Francois from Manic Cycles in Worcester drove all the way from Worcester to Maatjiesfontein to provide me with a new tire.
I never expected was to get soaking wet feet in the middle of the Karoo.
As far as spares and tools were concerned, I carried bombs, a tire gaiter, tire plugs, a spare tube, a few spare spokes, a multi-tool, a shock pump, some spare cleats and bolts for my shoes, a pair of long-nose pliers, and a spare tire.
Nora's Kraal Dam in the distance. This is a wonderful section. After quite a tough 22 odd k's along the railway service line from Maatjiesfontein to Laingsburg, with quite a bit of riverbed walking and thick sand, Had my first fall there and forgot my rucksack behind where I'd fixed a puncture. Had a nice break in Laingsburg at a ultra city, and then 10 beautiful Ks on the tar road towards Ladysmith, and then the turn off now to Fluoreskop.
Day 10 was another very special day. It was the day that I rode from Vergenoeg, which is deep in the Karoo, about 100 kilometers into the Karoo. From there, another 100 kilometers to Prince Albert, along a straight gravel road with the wind at my back, in the total isolation of the Karoo, being on my own in really magnificent countryside. Very, very special day indeed.
This is the beginning of day 10. Yesterday, Maatjiesfontein to Laingsburg and then to Vergenoeg. And then today, I'm off from here, Vergenoeg, off to Prince Albert for a day's break. Not a lot of company out here. And some animals that didn't quite make it.
Another special day was the day I spent in Prince Albert and on which I rode up the Swartberg Pass, which must be one of the most remarkable passes and underrated passes in South Africa, built by Sir Thomas Bain. Not only the ride up it, but the magnificent ride down it was very, very special indeed.
The Dorps rivier and into the base of the Swartberg Pass.
The weight I was carrying consisted basically of an unloaded bike weighing 13 kilograms, loaded with 4 kilograms of water, and on top of that my weight of 79 kilograms, so something about 110 kilograms in total.
Pushing my way to Droë Waterval, just where the real serious Thomas Bain brilliance stops. The brilliant work of Sir Thomas Bain, just absolutely amazing, this pass. And my stopping point, the Droë Waterval. Okay, and down we go. About 24 k's out of Prince Albert on the road towards the N12. Beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky, fairly mild temperature, but there's quite a stiff headwind and quite a lot of sand, so I'm going very slowly, just stopping on the hour to enjoy the solitude. It's day 13 and the meet-up with Andy, who's going to be with me for the next 5 days. Looking forward to the fun and the company. These Karoo villages, I think, should all be declared heritage sites. Riding the Groot Rivier Valley, just a most amazing ride. We started in Willow Moor and it's been basically downhill for something like 30 k's, but again, no cars, virtually no people, really great. Groot Rivier valley is incredibly fertile and amazingly beautiful. And then today we make our way to Klipplaat.
The maximum temperature I experienced on the route was 45 degrees Celsius on the way up Daggaboer Pass on the way to Bedford. And the lowest temperature I experienced was 5 degrees Celsius at the top of Nordea's Neck on the morning that I left there to get to Vuvu.
We're 10 k's out of Pierston. It's 41 degrees and he's taking some degree of strain, trying to resuscitate himself with droëwors, and he battling his way up to 1,330 meters above sea level. We were down at about 700 meters this morning. Well done, Andy. Fantastic, well done, brother.
Had a rest, and I found those flies, those horse flies.
Oh yeah, did they
Having a
sting
nice
you?
chomp through my socks.
Yeah.
Bugger. Oh yeah, how are you?
No, I'm fine. This is the Scottish Settler Memorial Church at Aildon that was built in memory of the Scottish settlers. The forward group was settled in this valley, but tragically the main group of 2,000 settlers were wrecked off the Skeleton Coast, and only 15 of them survived. But it's absolutely amazing to see what those settlers that did settle in this valley have managed to do, particularly the Pringle. The other interesting thing about this church is that Thomas Pringle was reburied here. This has been an amazing ride from Tarkastad through these incredible golden fields, lush after all the good rain they've had, and just a sense of vast space and distance. Just wonderful country to ride through. It's just after 6 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I'm leaving Sterkstroom on my way to Dordrecht, 60 odd k's, but it looks like the beginning of the Drakensberg and the hills for me, so I'm expecting quite a tough ride. That's been quite a climb out of Sterkstroom, about 5 k's and 150 meters climbing back up to 1,500 meters above sea level. On my way to Marsh Hill. I've just travelled about 11 k's out of Dordrecht, and already I've climbed over 200 meters.
One of the things I had to do at the end of each day's ride was to source food for the next day, which was quite often challenging because of the remoteness of the places I was staying in. But overall, I managed almost every day to find at least apples, bananas, droëwors in most places, and Energade or some similar drink, as well as water. And that riding diet basically worked for me. I don't say that it'll work for everybody, but it carried me through the ride.
20 kilometers out of Dordrecht, just stopping for a break. Really such a wonderful ride. You can't really get it much better than this on a bike.
at the top of the steep climb out of Rousseau, but I really seem to have found my legs today and have been able to pedal my way all the way up. It really is wonderful up here. I'm standing at the Mars Hill turn-off, which is about 2 k's down to the Mars Hill farm stay, and I've got 50 k's to go to Berkeley East today, where I want to do quite a bit of admin. As I think you can see, the scenery up here is really beautiful, really kind of on top of the Drakensberg. You can probably hear I'm in a very strong headwind. Day 27 involved the ride from Rhodes up Nordea's Neck Pass, which was about the 11th time I had ridden that pass, but on this day it was part of this journey, again with a following wind, which took me up to the highest point of my ride, and also took me to the top of Lahana's Pass, where there is a memorial to Jaco Stradum, which I wanted to see. It's just after 6 and I'm about to leave Rhodes on my way up Nordea's Neck. I'm down at about 17,000 meters above sea level. The top of Nordea's Neck is 2,500, and I climb that inside of 30 k's, so it should be quite interesting. Pushing me up, sometimes 16% gradient, and there goes the pass up ahead. I'm walking up one of the steepest parts of Nordea's Neck. Here I'm in the strongest wind I've ever been in my life. I'm battling to hold my bike on the ground. It's quite amazing. But right on the top, and there's a spot here where I may be able to get to the edge safely to take a picture. I'm leaning at about 45 degrees. We're getting right near the edge. The following day, which was very special, was I had spent the night in Tina Head Lodge at the top of Nordea's Neck Pass, and I had to ride down into the Transkei to stay overnight in Vuvu, and that was certainly the biggest contrast in my accommodation from a 6-star lodge, which was the most luxurious accommodation I'd had on the trip, to a hut in a village in Vuvu the next night with a wonderful family there. I'm about to leave Vuvu, where I stayed with the Ndlaza family, had a wonderful evening in this Vuvu village. I'm heading for Matatiele, where I hope to get to. It's 100 k's, so quite a challenge, but a really wonderful night with such a very hospitable family. Another special day was meeting Rory Field in Matatiele. Rory joined me in Matatiele and rode for 6 days with me from Matatiele to Newcastle and on to Wakkerstroom, where I took a day off and had a very enjoyable stay with Rory and his wife Leyden, and Colleen Kaywood and Derek joined us, and we celebrated Rory's birthday. And there is the intrepid Rory Field, who's joined me for our ride from Matatiele to Taylorville.
We're leaving Heimville this morning on a misty but not particularly cold morning, and we are heading for Glengarry in the foothills of the Drakensberg. It's about an 85k ride. We're expecting a lot of climbing and quite a tough day. And here we are crossing the mighty Umkomaas, obviously quite high up, so it's not at its pumping strength, but a lovely ride basically down from Heimville, which is cause for a little bit of concern because what goes down has to go up, and that seems to be the beginning of it. But a really nice spot to stop for a few minutes and have a banana. And we've reached the beautiful Bushman's River just behind the Wagon Drift Dam, on the way to Escort and then Ladysmith. It's been a wonderful, cool, overcast ride with a lot of descent so far, and what goes down must come up. And here the Bushman's River runs into the Wagon Drift Dam just outside Escort. Really quite a beautiful spot. And here we are crossing the mighty Tugela, and Rory's doing a few running repairs. We've ridden through very thick grass for about 20 k's, which is caught up in everything. And here is the plaque to the Tugela Bridge. It says erected at a cost of £19,000, was opened to traffic and named the Bulwer Bridge on the 23rd day of October 1879. Today Colleen Kaywood and Derek have joined us for the ride to Wakkerstroom. Very tough day yesterday, the longest day of all, 128 k's, 11 hours on the road, 1,100 odd meters of climbing, and I was pretty tired, but it's amazing what a night's sleep can do. I'm completely recovered, or I feel completely recovered. 30 k's out of Wakkerstroom. We've had such a great ride from Newcastle to Wakkerstroom, and we're at the end of the big dam. Had a very, very nice one-day admin break in Wakkerstroom, which, believe it or not, kept me very busy all day. We're about to leave for Amsterdam, which is over 100 kilometers away, and I hope that there isn't too much climbing. I expect it'll be fairly roller coaster. We are now up on the plateau. It's early Sunday morning, and I'm about to leave Amsterdam for another 100k plus leg to Beitbridge. It's cool, partly cloudy. Looks like there's the odd bit of mist around. I've had a reasonably comfortable night at Glenoak Lodge. I'm hoping that today is a bit roller coaster-ish, because yesterday turned out to be a bit more climbing and a little bit more traffic, coal truck traffic on the dust roads around the coal, the open pit coal mines of Mpumalanga. So let's hope for the best. Another really great day on the ride
was the ride from Beitbridge to Kaapse, which was about 100 kilometers, but involved 2,500 meters of climbing. My route forced me to climb the escarpment twice on that day. I was on the road for 13 hours and arrived in Kaapse by moonlight. Really a massive ride, fantastic scenery, and probably one of the most enjoyable days of the ride.
About to leave Beitbridge and I'm heading for Kaapse. It's a beautiful day, beautiful sunrise, and I'm heading along the main road to Barberton, at least for the first 13 k's. I'm a little bit worried about the traffic and whether there's a verge, and then I'll have to make a decision at 13 k's whether I go hectic cross country or carry on for a while on the main road. We'll see what the day brings. I've been climbing now almost without respite from Beitbridge. That's over 1,000 meters of climbing in 37 kilometers. I've come past the big Nkomati nickel mine and I'm approaching the Slyhoek turn-off, which goes back to Machadodorp. I'm heading for the N4 and ultimately to Kaapse. I've just finished the most amazing section of this ride. After I took the turn off 13 k's out of Beitbridge, rode that long climb up past the mine and eventually reached Slyhoek and the Cullinan Farm turn off, then turned off into the forests there and past the Cullinan Farm, and then have been wending my way through the forests on incredibly rugged tracks. This is a really good road compared with the tracks through the forest from Slyhoek. And there in the distance is the paper mill, and I've got a huge descent down to the N4, and then I've got to make my way up to Kaapse. It's already 3:10, so it's going to be a late finish today. I tried, and I believe I succeeded in riding 90% of the ride on gravel and only a maximum of 10% on tar, so that I replicated the requirements of the Great Divide ride in the United States. This is the descent to the N4, about 500 meters of descent. Absolutely amazing. That has to be the biggest descent I've ever done. About 800 meters descent in about 4 kilometers from 1,800 meters to 1,000 meters. Just great. I'm about to leave Kaapse after a good night's rest from yesterday's really big ride for me. Just on 100 k's, about 2,300 meters of climbing. Today I'm hoping for a slightly easier ride, something like 90 k's through to Sabi. Quite a dangerous descent down the escarpment to the N4, again through the Berlin forest. I'm right on top of the escarpment here, and perhaps far in the distance you can see the N4 and Alkmaar. I'm about to drop about 700 meters in the space of 3 or 4 kilometers. So it should be an interesting ride. And up ahead of me there I've got a baboon shouting at me. Leaving a little bit later than I planned from Sabi. It's poured with rain all night, and it's forecast to rain most of the day up here, but it's forecast to be relatively clear in the Lowveld. I arrived at Timbuktu restaurant. It says Timbuktu free beer, topless bartenders, false advertising, in the dark last night after a hectic 20 k's on the main road through Acorn Hook. I took a wrong turn and landed up there. Quite a hectic day's riding, 100 k's and about 1,900 meters of climbing. I was up in those mountains and then through the plantations and the forests, but it was a great ride. I'm crossing the Olifants after a very easy 50k ride from Mika. Really a very beautiful spot on the ride. I'm riding through really beautiful hills between Mika village and Gravelot on my way to Zanin. Another very, very enjoyable day was the ride from Zanin to Bandeliers-Kop, leaving the wonderful green hills of Zanin through the tea plantations to Bandeliers-Kop. On the way, I passed the 3,000 kilometer mark, also crossed the Tropic of Capricorn, entered my 4th province. Another very special day was day 45, when we went through the Waterpoort, which is the old Oxwagon trail through the Soutpansberg, which now carries the main Zimbabwe-South African railway line, where one is actually forced to walk along the railway line for about 8 kilometers in order to get through the pass. Today we're heading off to Waterpoort, which includes traversing the Waterpoort itself, which is not often traversed by cyclists. I've really been looking forward to doing it, and I'm lucky to have Gerrit Pretorius and Elton Price have joined me, and they have done a recce of some of the route, so it should be really quite an exciting day. Probably quite long on the bike, but not too long in distance. And this is Bandeliers-Kop Hotel, where we stayed last night. So yeah, looking forward to an exciting day. About 60 k's out of Bandeliers-Kop, approaching Waterpoort. It's really been the most wonderful ride. Almost dead flat, good service road with initially the Soutpansberg in the distance, and then eventually we get right to the foot of them. Very, very beautiful range of mountains.
Here's the ceremonial lap, last day, about to head out from Musina to Beitbridge with Gerrit and Elton. 15 Ks, shouldn't be too tough. And then we got to Beitbridge, and that was really very, very special to know that one has finished the journey. Sad, but also a really great feeling of satisfaction. Last, reached the Great Beitbridge, 3,100 odd Ks from Beitbridge. A wonderful sense of satisfaction, and thanks to my intrepid fellow riders on this last stretch, but also to Rory and Derek and Colleen and Andy and Layden, who did parts of the way with me. Just such a great sense of satisfaction. The champagne has arrived. The biggest lessons I learned from my journey was just how simple life can be. You lose your external identity. I was just an old man on a bike, not a lawyer, not a mediator, not a pundit or anything else. You are basically too busy to have epiphanies. All I could have was fun. I was generally blind to the magnificent beauty of South Africa, as I was blind to the extent of the socio-economic disaster which was unfolding before my eyes. I saw deserted farms, insecurity and fear, neglected roads, lack of enterprise, except Chinese and Pakistan and West African entrepreneurs in the small towns. And it seems that in those small towns, Grant Day has replaced Market Day, and there seems to be great dependence on grants. Also, I witnessed much demeaning public work, like sweeping dust roads. And also, I saw collapsed projects financed by overseas people wanting to assist. The other thing that struck me is how vast the space is in South Africa. Also, I learned that you must never trust locals on distance and routes. It seems that they don't venture very far from where they live. Also, I learned never to trust Kevin Davey on the ease of routes. What he said was easy often turned out to be very, very challenging. Another lesson was how different water tastes from one borehole to another. Also learned that there's always another hill beyond the horizon, and that tailwinds have advantages, but they also have disadvantages. I also learned that I could live on water, apples, and druivors, and of course a little bit of wine in the evening. Also learned to be aware of snakes. They were the greatest threat that I had from nature on my way. But most of all, I learned that if you want to do something, just do it.